The investigation into the death last year of Elijah McClain, the 23-year-old unarmed black man stopped by Colorado police while walking home from a corner store. Over the weekend, thousands protested in Aurora, Colorado, demanding answers. Back in August of 2019, McClain was wearing a mask on a warm night and was reported to be suspicious. 3 police officers confronted him, as shown in this body camera footage.
Stop. I have a right to stop you because you're being suspicious. Stop tensing up.
McClain seems confused about why he's being stopped. An officer is heard shouting that McClain tried to reach for another officer's gun. Then McClain was tackled and held in a chokehold, saying he can't breathe.
I can't breathe correctly.
Paramedics gave McClain a high dose of sedatives, and on the way to the hospital, McClain had a heart attack. He died several days later. Colorado District Attorney Dave Young decided not to charge the 3 police officers with McClain's death, a decision that is now under intense scrutiny. Last week, the governor of Colorado reopened the case and assigned a special prosecutor to investigate. Tonight, we are joined by Dave Young, the DA who found there was insufficient evidence to charge these officers. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Young. We appreciate you joining us.
You bet. Happy to be here.
So I want to just start out with your initial reaction when you saw the video. Did you ever think that criminal charges may be warranted?
Yes, of course. When I initially saw the video, based on the totality of the video, my initial impression was that it was the ketamine that perhaps caused Mr. McLain's death. It wasn't until I received the forensic autopsy report that I learned that that, in fact, was not the cause of death. In fact, we don't know what the cause of Mr. McLain's death was.
And when that report came back inconclusive, did you ever consider having an independent autopsy performed at that time?
No, we have a forensic pathologist that performs our autopsies here, and I would disagree with the assessment that it was inconclusive. I think it was very conclusive on many aspects, but certainly cause of death was not able to be determined, and as a prosecutor, I have to prove that element beyond a reasonable doubt if I'm going to charge any form of homicide in the state of Colorado.
Well, many have seen these videos, and they believe that the force against McClain was unjustified. In your initial letter, you describe Elijah McClain as, quote, violently struggling with the officers, and that, quote, there was no evidence to dispute the perception of the officers and the need to escalate the use of force. At what point in the arrest do you feel that there was this violent struggle?
Well, I think it certainly escalated as the contact with Mr. McClain started. This whole incident started with a 911 call where Aurora Police Department were responding to a 911 call, and they saw someone matching the description of the person that was described by the 911 caller, which happened to be Mr. McClain. They approached Mr. McClain. They had no idea that he had headphones on. They had no information about even who he was at the time. All they had was an individual wearing a ski mask in the middle of August when it was very hot outside. So they approached to investigate to see what was happening. Mr. McClain didn't respond to their commands to stop. And then it escalated to the point where they wanted to pat him down to make sure that he did not have any weapons for their own safety, to the point where Mr. McClain stated words to the effect that I want to get my power back. And the officers then, one of the officers said he's going for the gun. And that's when the force escalated to the point where really why we're having this conversation.
And so essentially you would say that a chokehold was warranted at that time based on that?
Absolutely not. I would never say that. I would say that force was reasonable, and that I certainly could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the amount of force that was used was not reasonable under the circumstances of this investigation.
Now, in the state of Colorado, criminally negligent homicide is defined as unintended deaths caused by careless behavior. Was that at all an option for you? Did you consider pursuing lesser charges?
Yeah, every crime was an option, and criminally negligent homicide certainly was there. But as you alluded to, a key element to criminal negligent homicide is that the defendant or suspects or the target of the investigation would have had to cause the death of another individual. And I cannot prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Therefore, I cannot file that particular type of charge in a court of law.
But do you believe that the officer's actions ultimately led to Mr. McLain's death?
That I don't know. Mr. McLain had a serious heart condition, and I personally believe that that's what led to his death. And so I cannot prove one way or the other if the actions caused his death.
And as you know, many people are now second-guessing the decisions, picking apart that videotape. Do you stand by your decision not to charge the officers?
Yes, I stand by my decision, and it's unfortunate that people feel that by voicing their opinions that's going to change the facts and the law of a certain investigation. Every day my office review criminal allegations to file charges or not to file charges, or return those cases back for further investigation. We have to make that decision based on the facts that are in front of us and what the law is at the time of the allegations.
There is now a growing demand, a petition for you to resign. Can you understand why people may want you to step down, and is it at all something that you may consider doing?
No, I'm not going to consider doing that. It's unfortunate that people are acting on their emotions. This investigation has been open to the public since November of last year. Anyone can do an open records request with the Aurora Police Department and look at the entirety of the investigation. And if you choose to, you can look and see what the law is. And if you want to look at the investigation and the law and talk to me about whether or not I can prove my case beyond a reasonable doubt, I will listen. But if you're going to act on emotions, or if you're going to be political and act on others' emotions, I don't have a lot of patience for that, because I'm in the proving business. I've got to have facts, and I've got to apply those facts to the law that I have in front of me before I make decisions.
You know, it seems like one compelling moment in the video that I've heard kind of this outcry is that he too said, "I can't breathe." And at that point, someone who, I'm wondering if you would agree, someone who says, "I can't breathe," if they seem to be powerless, at least in that moment, and that any reasonable officer might at that point decide that their actions are potentially going to lead to harm. And what does that idea play? Because you talk about people talking about being emotional and that playing a role, but when you hear somebody saying, "I can't breathe," that doesn't change anything in your mind?
Look, I don't condone the officers' actions out there. In fact, I wish they would have done things differently. But I don't have the ability to go back into time and say, look, just follow him home. Just observe him for a while. What I have to do is I have to look at the facts that are in front of me. I have to look at those facts as a police officer's perspective, because I know the investigations. I know the tragedy of this death to Mr. McLain and his family. But at the time, the officers knew nothing about Mr. McLain. All they knew is there was a 911 call. We need to investigate the suspicious person. They went to go do that, and things escalated to where we all know happened.
Right.
But look, absolutely, if someone's saying, "I can't breathe," get off of him. Do it. Just get off of him. But again, that I have no indication led to the cause of Mr. McLain's death. In fact, he had no injuries to his neck. So regardless of the chokehold or carotid hold or whatever you want to call it, there are no injuries to support that would have led to his death.
Mr. Young, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.